Welcome to Season 2, Episode 26 of Comic Book Nation, the official podcast of Comicbook.com. I am your host, Kofi Outlaw, and with me today, we've gotten some of the original members back together. We got Matt Aguilar, who just basically sleeps here now, so you know him. But we brought back our original Trinity member, Mr. Brandon Davis, with special guests today.
That's right. We have Nova here. Nova's here today. Nova, say hi.
Oh. And Mr. Turn Up Charlie Ridgely is with us again. I mean, I feel like we're overusing you. We're supposed to pull you out only as like a heel that comes on every now and again, but here we go.
That's all right. Sometimes you get a long heel run, you know, you gotta roll with it.
No, I mean, you and BD together is the best mix. So we're going to fight about some things today. We're going to talk about some things today. So we thought we'd just have kind of the original crew back with us. We're going to talk about a new Star Wars series coming to Disney Plus some other big renewals that we just got wind of. We're talking about somebody who wants to maybe throw his hat in the ring for the MCU Wolverine. Matt wants to talk to you about video games so he can grow his expertise. Plus, Brandon brought up something that we are going to kind of get into and talk about on the Marvel front. And we have something to talk about in terms of wrestling, a big question there. So we're not just here to talk about news this time. Because we've been locked in quarantine for so long, we're starting to solve problems now. And so, this is Comic Book Nation Saves the Universe. So we're going to try to solve a couple problems. Yeah, so here we go. Starting right at the top. So, like I said, we're getting a new Star Wars series on Disney+. No, it's not the Boba Fett thing or like some firmer confirmation of Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is something new. It's going to be a female-centric Star Wars series, and it's coming to Disney+. I think that's about all we know. As I said last time, I only do mild amounts of homework for this show, so I believe that's all we know. And it's coming. Oh, that's right. It was coming from Leslie Headland, who is the creator of Netflix's Russian Doll, with my girl Natasha Leone within it. And naturally, now that we've heard this, everybody's kind of freaking out and speculating about whether this is going to be something to do with like a younger Leia or Rey or Jyn Erso. Like there's all these theories going around. There's always the Ahsoka Tano's like always on the board if she's coming to the Mandalorian and Rosario Dawson's playing her. So I wanted to hear what you guys thought because I got our biggest Star Wars fans here. Brandon Davis, let's start with you. As the unabashed Star Wars fan of Comicbook.com, how do you feel about all this? And which characters out of the wide Star Wars library that I know you're knowledgeable about would you like to see in the series?
I know nothing about the deep Star Wars canon. I mean, I don't even know how to. I'm not even going to act like I can pull some deep cut that I want to see. But I mean, Star Wars content on Disney Plus. I loved The Mandalorian, so I mean, I feel like in watching The Mandalorian, like it made me do my research, like to go back and find out stuff about the Darksaber from Clone Wars and stuff like that. So whatever they do, I'm sure I'm going to make myself a relative expert on it so that I can talk about it. But before they do it, I'm not the guy.
Thanks, Brandon. You really held it down on that segment. Thanks, man. No, all right. Charlie, I know you always have a good opinion.
I do. I always have great opinions.
An opinion.
Oh, no, you're right. They're always good. They're always good.
After that, we need an opinion. So please give me an opinion.
I'll be really disappointed if it's anything but Dr. Aphra. Like Dr. Aphra is the character that people want to see. It's a character that hasn't been in, any kind of TV or movie format. She's only been in the comic books, but she's a really beloved character.
Now I feel like Brandon. Thanks a lot. This is going swimmingly.
Dr. Aphra is a character. She's a Matt. She's an archaeologist. And she has some of the coolest side characters. She has two droids. One looks a lot like C-3PO, but he has like red eyes and he's all black metal. And he's an assassin. And she's got this big Wookiee with her. And she just has a really like take no crap attitude, really, really smart, really into the history of the planet she visits. And she worked with Darth Vader for a while, like acquiring things for him. And that's kind of how she came into the world, is during the first, I believe it was the Jason Aaron Darth Vader comic, she was introduced as a side character and then really quickly got her own book because she was really, really fascinating. And they've been talking about that for a long time. There's been all these rumors about a Dr. Aphra series that was rumored to be the Mystery Star Wars series, and now when it's like, oh, we're going to have this female-led show, it's like, okay, well, Dr. Aphra is the easy, and it's the no-brainer choice. It's the one people want to see. If it's something completely original, Leslie Headland is really, really smart. I loved Russian Doll on Netflix. So if she does something completely original in something that we've never heard before, or the character we've never talked about, that's awesome. I would love that. But if it's going to be a character that we know, it better be Dr. Aphra. I don't want we don't need a young Leia. We don't need a young, Rey's already young. Like, none of that really makes any sense. But a Dr. Aphra show would really, I think, bring people in. It would be a project that a lot of people would line up to see.
I don't think a lot of people would be behind it initially, but I could see a Jyn Erso being like, because you got to fill in gaps of that character. But that character's, I mean, we know what happens
because
to that
it's a character you could name because you know the movies.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that character, we know what happens to her in the end. So it's kind of pointless to go back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Cassian thing has potential, even though we know what happens to him. It would seem weird for them to do two characters from that one movie, though, and do their own spinoffs, with both of them knowing where they end up in the end.
I mean, do you think people would
technically every character ever ends up dead eventually. So we know where they all go.
Yeah,
except
but people...
Palpatine.
Wow, well, that's true. Yeah, there you go.
We thought he was dead.
Am I the only one who would want to see? Who thinks like you could have like an easy spinoff of Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka Tano from The Mandalorian into her own series?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a thing that could totally happen, and I would like to see it. I'm sure. I mean, I love Rosario Dawson and I love Ahsoka Tano, so that's a great fit. But I just, the way they talked about this being a totally unexplored story, I don't see that being what this is.
Yeah, and plus what you said sounds a lot more affordable for TV with your character I now have to go look up. So there you go. That's it on the Star Wars front. So we'll keep an eye on what this new Disney Plus centric series is and tell you about that. But we got two big renewals, as I said. So The Mandalorian Season 2 we're waiting for to get here. But Disney Plus isn't messing around. They're just already tripling down and saying, look, before you even get here for Season 2, Mandalorian Season 3 is happening. So that's already in the cards. So, Brandon, are you mad you're going to have to keep dropping and resubscribing to Disney Plus like for the next couple of years?
Dude, they got me.
He's locked in for 3 years.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting they got you.
I don't even I'm at the point now, I'm just watching the animal documentaries. Like, I'm out of stuff.
Am I, man. They're pretty good, though.
But they're pretty good. They're great. They're great to fall asleep to if, you have your extracurriculars before you go to bed and then you want to knock out with some earthy stuff. It's great. But also, I'll be honest, I've been watching the Silver Surfer cartoon, but it's really going to be nice to have, like, something new. Yes. Long story short, I want Mandalorian Season 2 and 3 yesterday.
All right. Here's something we also didn't know we were getting. We're getting to another season of Westworld. I guess.
Woo! I cared.
I guess.
After your ringing endorsement last week, I would say
Well, Janelle was more hyped about it than I was. But, it's not the same show this season. The real world stuff is just your kind of standard. It's like Terminator with more talking, I guess. So I'm okay about it, but I don't know. It is what it is. We're getting more Westworld, yay. HBO.
No matter how good or bad Westworld is, it's always going to end up kind of like Prison Break, and kind of like
overstaying its welcome.
Where the first season was perfect.
Don't hurt Brandon Davis.
Where it had a perfect first season, and it's going to be really hard for anything the show does after that to live up to it.
Is Brandon a giant Prison Break person? I didn't know.
I like Prison Break.
I did not know this.
No, he's a giant Lost dude.
I was whispering Lost.
I
think the first season of Prison Break is one of the single best TV seasons I've ever seen.
No, that is true.
After season 1, it really kind of fell apart. But that first season is so good.
I was there.
Lost was great all the way through with just like a little
Stop it.
Great ending.
Brandon,
the ending of Lost is perfect.
Come on, man.
Brandon, I have to die on that hill.
That first half, that 6-episode arc of season 3 during the writer's strike when they're all locked in a cage.
Season
they literally
3
had
is
no
terrible.
ideas.
Everything was bad.
You just said it was great.
I know. It's just like one of those Dave Chappelle Rick James moments.
The writer's strike ruined Heroes that year too. Everything went down. Grey's Anatomy took a hit. Everything was terrible.
Was already down. Heroes was already down.
Yeah,
midway.
I mean, yeah.
But okay.
Season 2 got a little rough, but that was another one that had a perfect first
Haters.
season of Heroes.
Haters.
But regardless, I was trying to compliment Lost on the fact that it has a perfect first season.
Yeah, and
The first season of Lost is so well executed.
Oh, yeah,
perfect last season.
Yeah, no, first season of Lost is perfect. Like, I will give you that. That is a perfect season, and
that's how I see Westworld. Is that even when it's good, it's that first season of Westworld was so different from everything else on TV. It was so surprising. There's so many great twists. Like, I don't think it's ever going to live up to the standard it set for itself in that first season.
Yeah, that's the thing with HBO series, though. Like,
that's why we don't need a second season of Watchmen.
No,
yeah,
I mean, no, but that would have been more of like an anthology. Like, I would have possibly liked to see a different story in the Watchmen universe.
What happened with True Detective?
Yeah, well, stop it. It's coming back. Stop it.
Season 2 isn't as bad as everyone says it is. It wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as you say.
You just stop now. Oh, God,
this is why you bring Charlie on the show.
That's why I bring the two.
I just said it's not as good. There's another one. True Detective season 1 is it's immaculate. Season 2 is not as bad as the rap it gets, but it's still not great.
Wow, we've gone way off the beaten path. But I was just going to say that the thing with HBO series in general, especially ones that, it's all good in the series, it's getting old. True Blood, Game of Thrones, now Westworld. It's like when they do nudity scenes and it feels like I'm looking at like somebody I've been in a relationship with for too long, and I'm just like, please take this off the screen. Like, bring some new ass. Get out of here. Like, we need... It's just the HBO experience.
I'm not touching that.
I don't know where to go with this.
What?
If you need to talk, I mean,
my God.
I just talked. I just told you how I feel. I just told you how I feel.
That's this Westworld season 3 review. Bring me some new ass.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Soon, I can't. I mean, when an HBO series, I can't even watch a sex scene anymore. It's time to go. It's time to retire it.
Wow.
It's just been too much. Like, it's just been too much for too long.
We need to get Cookie out of the house.
You think I'm gonna? Apocalypse ain't changing me. Apocalypse ain't changing me.
So moving on.
Yeah. Fine. So all of you, fine. Since all of you are scared to touch that one, we'll move on. The point is,
it's not as scared. I don't even know what's happening.
Oh God, I'm glad I got this collection of people today. You guys are snappy with all the banter. All right. So we'll tell you something you maybe can't handle. Can you handle Tom Payne wanting to play Wolverine? Can everybody do that? Help me out there.
I like Tom Payne a lot. I think he's a very talented actor, and I consider him a friend of mine. That being said,
boy, you qualified that.
I can't wait for you to tell me about Tom Payne texting you.
I mean, that
was a Stephen A. Smith like
Kobe?
We don't care. Look at me. We don't care.
You're like a brother to me.
I mean, listen, no, okay. I think Tom Payne is actually very talented.
Let's talk about who Tom Payne is for people who don't know.
Tom Payne played Jesus on The Walking Dead. That's what he's best known for. Right now, he has a show called Prodigal Son.
It's actually pretty good.
It's a very good show on Fox. He plays
Malcolm,
the son of a serial killer named The Surgeon. The Surgeon is a maniacal serial killer, and there's the constant questions of whether or not this serial killer's habits and being horrible kind of trickle down into his son at all. He has these night terrors. He does crazy stuff on this show. I think Tom is a very good actor. He's the right size to play Wolverine. He's he's shorter than you think he is. Sorry, Tom. You said that in our interview recently. That's why we're talking about this.
He's got the hair.
He's got the hair. I mean, he's a beautiful dude. Like, let's just call it what it is. Like, you can respect it. Everybody knows the dude's handsome. I've never seen
he's too handsome for Wolverine.
Yeah, he's a little too good looking to play Wolverine.
You remember when you guys said I was too awkward? Like,
dude, all right, listen.
Minutes ago.
What it is.
Hey, I'm with Brandon. Tom Payne is a beautiful human. He's a great looking guy.
It's just not even fair. He's got a jawline. He's got like the.
What's the answer?
What he's trying to say is Tom's great, but he's not a good fit for Wolverine. That's what Brandon's trying to say. I'll say it so Brandon doesn't have to.
He'd be a good fit for Wolverine because I know, like, they're going to go such a drastically different route. Inevitably, they want to differentiate this from Hugh Jackman. The thing is, when you think of Wolverine, you think of like a brooding, like, loner leader who inevitably likes people to an extent. So it's like, could Tom have that range to drop some of the charm, even though I'm sure they're going to want a little bit of it because it is the MCU, to make himself seem hardened and shut off? Because we haven't seen that I haven't seen that in any of Tom's roles that I've watched him in. but I'm not saying he can't. I think he'd be an okay fit. Are there other people who might do better? I mean, it depends what type of Wolverine they're looking for. So
I mean,
I'm definitely not saying
somebody,
yes, but I'm also not saying no.
You need somebody like and I don't think this person's a great fit because of he's really tall and he's already in the franchise. But you need someone like a David Harbour, who is David Harbour. Can he be a good looking dude? Yeah, but he can play that more rugged. He can be snappy and quippy. I'm just saying you need someone with some of those same traits who can also appear very rugged.
I think Tom Payne's a great image for Ultimate Wolverine, that version.
Yeah, dude, Tom Payne with a beard, and he could do the hair. I mean, I think he can get the look of Wolverine. I think he'd have to beef up a little bit, which would be easy because he's like 5'6", so he could probably gain like mass pretty quickly.
Okay, but in this day and age, I never worry about bulking up anymore. Like when someone
goes, got the hormones for that.
But this is the same stuff we've seen over and over and over again, and then they show up and they're ripped and they've put on muscle mass. Like it's not, you can do that now on a regular basis in Hollywood pretty easily.
Sure, but I mean, the argument against Tom is going to be that he's so skinny because right now he's not known for his physique.
I mean, but Hugh Jackman wasn't either. He was in Oklahoma.
Right. Well, right. I mean, I agree with Matt. I 100% agree with Matt, but I know our comment section is going to say, ew, no, he's so skinny or something. Like,
those are the same people that said Gal wasn't going to be good for Wonder Woman, and they were proven wrong. So, I mean, it's the same arguments. It was she's too skinny. She's never played a role like this before. But I get it. I think he could. There's honestly no one else in Hollywood right now that screams Wolverine to me. So Payne's as good as
Tom Hardy makes, I think, the most sense of anyone.
I
mean, I'm not. It's not even who I'd pick, but just on the surface, he makes the most sense.
I can't argue with that. I think that's actually. I don't know if he makes the most sense, but I think Tom Hardy actually would be a very interesting choice.
Listen, I prefaced Matt with saying that I didn't say that that David Harbour should play him. I just said the qualities that David Harbour possesses are what you need to look for.
Does he have claws? Because I can't see the qualities otherwise.
Wow.
It's nothing about.
And about Tom Payne, like whenever people make this argument against like he's too small, all I do is I show them like a picture. Brandon Davis, 2009. Brandon Davis, 2019. Anything is possible. Anything.
That's totally true.
It's like I'm like bam, the gains, kid.
I miss the hair.
Kid. Completely different kid, looking good.
Oh, don't worry. Don't you worry. It's quarantine. I'm at like Lil Dicky stage right now. I'm trying to get all the way back to 2016 flow.
Oh my God.
Got to plug the Lil Dicky show, by the way. If you're bored, that show on Hulu, Dave, is
we already did a plug for that. You guys, get out of here. Stop trying to come in this show like we don't do plugs for Dave. We do plugs for Dave. We did a whole plug.
It's a weird hill to die on.
Dude, that was a stage of quarantine madness like a week ago. I watched that whole thing. Yeah, it's pretty good. In fact, I got an episode waiting upstairs. So moving on from admiring Tom Payne and Westworld and HBO as to, I guess, Matt, get weird with Assassin's Creed, Matt. Just
so for now, these are all again preface. I feel like I do this every time we talk about games on the show.
Wait, I just want to talk and just say, I feel like the show became smut once you introduced the symbiote orgy to this whole thing. Like, it was such a clean show before
that needs proper context. I saw you spreading that on Twitter without any kind of context.
I spread what needed to be spread, but go ahead. Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. So what we had heard previously was that the next iteration in the franchise would be a Viking centered affair. The last one, Odyssey, was one of the best games, I will say, of this. Like, I feel like this generation, just period. It's a fantastic game and one of the best in the franchise. And they're evidently going to be making bigger strides in this one. Again, these are rumored leaks, but they come from places that have been right before. So we'll see. The biggest thing in here is that Ubisoft is going to reveal big details of the new game, which has been called Kingdom. Ragnarok is the other name, but has no official name. In fact, Ubisoft's not even officially said they're working on another Assassin's Creed.
Wait, if it's Ragnarok, does that mean Vikings?
It's literally what
he just said.
So dope.
David Harbour, listen.
I was going in and out.
No, he just said, it would be Vikings.
It was my internet.
So it would be Vikings. The report says that they'll roll out details at the end of April and beginning of May. And that's really quick turnaround for a game that has not been officially announced that they're even in development at any point. Also, the target release date is later this year. So it seems like one of those is a reach, because it seems odd that without an E3, without any of the big shows, because all of them have been postponed or canceled because of the coronavirus, that they would roll that out that quickly without any of the typical marketing, and especially like retailers and stuff like that, especially GameStop with Assassin's Creed games always back it in a really big way. But if they do reveal the info, there are going to be evidently more RPG elements. Odyssey introduced a few more. It's still not like an RPG. I saw it kind of compared to like, oh, it's turning into an RPG. It's not. But it still has more of those. The story in Odyssey was fantastic. It was so well voice acted. They're going to continue that. Evidently, you are going to be able to pick a male and or female character and just roll through the story with that character, and they'll blend the stories together. In Odyssey, it was a brother and sister. So evidently that's going to happen. And then there's evidently like supernatural elements they're going to introduce into this. The Viking, setting, Norse mythology stuff kind of lends itself to that. We also saw in Odyssey that like Atlantis shows up, and there was a whole DLC thing kind of dedicated to that, with the Greek mixed in with the Greek mythology stuff. So it's already kind of ventured into that. It seems like they're going to embrace that more. I'm excited for this because I'm a sucker for anything Viking and Norse kind of in nature. But the last Assassin's Creed was fantastic. I am concerned about the turnaround time with announcement coming in a month or two, and with all the uncertainty in this world, it seems like this should probably be postponed till 2021. Because it seems odd that they would just aim for a release in like October.
I mean, they could have been in development for years, and I mean,
true.
Those secrets are easy, especially when E3 was supposed to happen, and like that could have been the big announcement.
Yeah, but like in the gaming world right now, leaks are so common. It is incredibly rare for something not to hit. I mean, even Ragnarok, like the working title and some other things have been part of other leaks, but like for them to not officially, like Ubisoft is pretty good about, hey, we're skipping a year, but we're working on the next one. They're kind of upfront about stuff in their pipeline. So it seems odd that they would just go quiet on it for this long and still be aiming for a release this year, especially since evidently in the holiday of this year, we're still supposed to be getting next gen systems. So is it on the old gen or is it on PS5 and Series X? Like,
no, if they're aiming for a holiday release, they probably want to launch with Series X and
right, or do an up-res, like just do an up-res version that works on both hardware. I mean, that could be it's a multi-platform game, so I mean, it could totally be. But I mean, I'm stoked for it. I just want concrete information. It seems to. I don't know when we're going to get it though, because like Gamescom and E3 and the typical outlets that Ubisoft uses. I mean, Ubisoft is typically known for like bringing Aisha Tyler to introduce the next Assassin's Creed game on stage, on Microsoft stage or Sony stage. So I have no idea where they would, other than just going like on Twitter, hey, we're doing it. I don't know where they're going to announce it. So.
Okay. So we could be looking at Assassin's Creed 2021.
That's what I think. I think they'll come out at some point, as we've seen a lot of studios come out this year and go, hey, because of this, we're pushing it to 2021. Here's a teaser trailer or something.
It'll just be like the new Last of Us. Just every time it's like within a month, it's like, oof. Nah.
So close.
It can.
So close. So close.
All right. Well, we'll see how it goes. But I think it would depend on how much of the marketing they already put together with a 2020 all over it. And
right. Yeah.
All that stuff. So we'll see how that goes. Moving right along from Assassin's Creed, when we come back, we're going to deep dive into a topic Mr. Brandon Davis kind of raised that bears some good discussion. So we're going to get into that and something on the wrestling front we also got to talk about. So be sure to stay tuned. All right. So Brandon Davis, you man of ideas, quarantine watch party, such and such, recently kind of posed a question that he wrote up on the site, which you can check in our wonderful Comicbook.com Marvel section, which is basically asking, now that we've seen the conventions of this year, the major ones, WonderCon, Comic-Con, get wiped out or just postponed because of, obviously, the coronavirus pandemic that we're all living through. So Brandon Davis thought it was good time and space to maybe raise a question of opportunity about the Marvel franchise. And it's basically like this. Given how big Marvel has gotten and the Marvel Cinematic, from the comics to the Marvel Cinematic Universe to everything in between, is it time for Marvel to have its own convention? Now, just for background, real quick, if you don't know, typically the Marvel Cinematic Universe got its kicks by starting off as a Comic-Con closer. Comic-Con Saturday night, Hall H was a Marvel tradition for many years, especially in Phase 1 when the whole franchise was just getting off the ground. I was there. It was crazy. But in the years since, they've kind of scaled back a lot from Comic-Con. Sometimes it's been moved because of the Disney acquisition. It's been moved that major Marvel events happen at D23. And when Phase 3 came around, Marvel just was like, F it, we want the spotlight, and held their own event, which was a worldwide headline-making event. So that's everything that's kind of on the table. The kind of questions I would that kind of raise with this is, if Marvel has its own convention, that's great for Marvel and announcements and knowing where to get them, but does it take away too much from some of these other conventions where, like, let's be honest, Marvel is the kind of big headlining presence? Or is there some kind of in-between, or do you just want to keep things they are and don't take away my con type thing? So, Brandon Davis, what do you think? I mean, obviously you kind of pitched this idea into the room, but what's your take on it?
I mean, I'm all for it. I think, the presence at San Diego Comic-Con is tremendously exciting. But we've already seen other studios pull out of San Diego Comic-Con. Warner Brothers didn't go last year. Universal didn't go last year. Sony didn't go last year. Marvel has taken a year off, and Comic-Con has still been big, So I think, you still go to Comic-Con, you still go to D23 because the proof is in Star Wars, which I think, and you can come at me as you want for saying this, but Marvel has undoubtedly taken the throne from Star Wars at the movies.
Oh, spicy.
It is bigger at the movies. It is a bigger worldwide event right now when a Marvel movie comes out than when a Star Wars movie comes out. And the numbers just show, I mean, I said it.
The numbers back it up.
Yeah, it's the biggest cinematic franchise in the world. Love it or hate it, the numbers prove they sell more tickets. Yes, they make more movies. Absolutely. I know that's a factor. But these movies are hits every time they come out to some extent. Some of them are bigger than others. But you have the built-in fan base, and Star Wars already does this. Star Wars Celebration already exists. Star Wars Celebration, whether it's they don't do it every year, but whenever they do it, the most recent one had 65,000 people there in one event for a weekend. Do that with Marvel, and Marvel has a similar, if not bigger, catalog to pull from, because I'm not talking about just movies. I mean, movies are obviously going to be the big draw because that's where the mainstream audience comes in. But you do this with comics. You do this with animation. You do this on video games. Every single front that Marvel wants to. You have panels for illustrators and writers. You have panels for directors and actors. You have panels for animators. Everything in between. You have autograph opportunities with the comic creators. You have photo opportunities with the actors. Everything in between. And this is already happening. You already have Ace Comic-Con and Wizard World Comic-Con reveling in the names of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and offering opportunities for the comic creators to get a booth that a lot of times they probably have to pay for themselves to be at these things, to be at some of these events. So why not just put them all under one roof and make a gigantic event when you can? Because other cons are already kind of doing it. Star Wars already does it. So just make it a Marvel con. You can control the news. You can control the press opportunities. You can control the panels and the merchandise. Forget it. The exclusive merchandise that they could sell, the tickets to Disney World and Disneyland that they could sell once the Marvel sections of those parks are rolling. Forget it. I mean, I don't see any loss from Disney's perspective, and they love winning. So I can't imagine what would stop them from wanting to do this. And for fans, it's a cool event. It's just a cool opportunity to get interact with your favorite celebrities, creators, writers, illustrators, everything like that, and network a little bit and all that kind of stuff. And then we just get news out of it. So obviously we win as well.
So what's your stake in this convention right now?
What's that?
So what's your stake in the convention right now?
Man, I'm trying to
walker stalker this thing.
I think that you can have it both ways, BD. I think you're right, and it's big enough to sustain its own convention. Absolutely, like it is the biggest franchise that exists and has ever existed.
I mean, at the same time, DC Comics could have their own convention as well.
Right. What I'm saying is, if you're
from Jason Momoa to Jim,
stop that.
If you're Disney,
you're telling me you don't think
own these
DC
properties,
Comics Con could pack out a convention center for 3 days?
I think there would be a lot of trolls putting together photos on the internet between Marvel Con and DC Con.
Well, I mean, sure, that you'd have your trolls and your wars and attendance arguments and everything like that. But the fact is, both of them could be successful.
Yes, I agree.
Yes, I agree. The point I'm trying to make is if you're Disney and you own Marvel and Star Wars and all this other stuff, D23, you want to keep those things going. And you also want to have a presence at things like Comic-Con because they are a revenue source. And you don't have to pay, like Disney has to pay for the entire Marvel convention to put it on, where they just show up to Comic-Con.
That is true.
But I think the idea here, the way to go is to follow the Celebration model, which Celebration is every other year, I think, right? So alternate, take that same weekend every year. It's Marvel one year, it's Star Wars the next year. It's Marvel then it's Star Wars, and alternate. And then so those off years, you still have Comic-Con things, or when you have big announcements, you can still go to Comic-Con. You still have these presences everywhere, but you can also once every other year have this giant event that brings in a bunch of money and is solely devoted to Marvel. I think you can win kind of both sides of that argument going that route.
Just think about how many hats Kevin Feige would have to wear.
I like Charlie's idea a lot. Like, I think that's honestly the best way. Because, I mean, honestly, you don't need one. It's not a question of need because that's what D23 is. Like, D23 covers all of those things. Celebration was, it's a really in a lot of ways, fan-driven event, even though it's put on officially. It's really a fan-driven event. Like, there's so much fan community stuff that happens around that the community is responsible for, not just Disney. So with Marvel, it would, need to be the same thing. And like Charlie pointed out, Marvel and Disney would have to foot the bill for all that stuff because they're not just paying table fees and they're not just paying, for like photo op setups and stuff to get talent there. They're having to foot the bill for like the electric and like everything else, which we know can be incredibly expensive for a Comic-Con runner. So, to put that much effort into it, I like the every other year thing because it makes it a little more feasible.
Absolutely, yeah.
It also makes it feasible from a talent perspective because you're not expending all your talent every single year. You have a whole other year to get new movies in the mix and get a whole new crew of actors that you're able to kind of swap in and out, as opposed to just making it like Star Wars has been until like the new trilogy. Like Star Wars was essentially like it's the same people every time, and you can see them at various other places with cons, especially.
And I mean, think about what Marvel's already done. Like Marvel took off 2018, at Comic-Con, and 2017. Brandon, you and I were there, and it was awesome. It was when they showed the first. They showed some stuff from Infinity War. That was the big drop down Kendrick Lamar trailer from Black Panther. Like that was a huge thing. It was so much fun being in that room. And then they took off 2018, and then 2019 was just mind blowing at Comic-Con. I mean, all the announcements they had in 2019, for what the world looked like post Endgame. And so that, I think the timeline really works. But you think about a business perspective, like you got to think about the trickle down effects of if Marvel were to have a convention every year and take away, and then you have DC or Warner Brothers or Sony or whatever decide to do their own thing, you kind of can look at, it's kind of like we're talking about the movie industry now, when you talk about digital releases, streaming versus theaters, it's like you can see a path to eliminating this thing. And so you look at conventions, and as these smaller ones kind of build up and are more specific, you could potentially lose things like San Diego Comic-Con, Ace, WonderCon, Emerald City.
Well, that's happened to E3. We've watched that exact thing happen.
And you think about,
but E3 kind of sucked to begin with.
If Marvel starts pulling out of things, what does that do to Funko? What does that do to Hasbro? What does that do to all these companies and exhibitors that have art at these things to then not have build up at the convention to?
But also, let me point this out as well. I mean, a lot of people obviously can't afford to go to cons to see the panels, whether they want to even spend money on an autograph or not. A lot of people can't afford to travel and get a hotel and buy a ticket and go to a con. Disney Plus needs content. Make a live stream these panels as whether you include footage or not. Live stream the panels. Like that way you're getting your news out there. You're driving people to the streaming service that you're trying so hard to build. And that goes the same for DC on HBO Max. Like the digital opportunities to let people watch from home as well. I mean, that absolutely hurts a little bit of the exclusivity and excitement of getting.
But so then what's the point in going? Because like that's my thing. Like I get it.
That's the discussion with the movies. That's where this all is leading when you talk about movies that are releasing digitally and movies that are in
this
theaters.
is where I come in now, because everybody's getting all along on this point, but I'm bored, so I'm not. So, yeah, I don't want you guys changing my con. Like, you don't need to start changing my cons. We don't need a con for everybody. This isn't a participation trophy. These things grew and started because there was a Comic-Con. Keep my Comic-Con the same. You keep the smell.
But being grumpy and old, let embrace change.
In one place. Keep that smell in one place. Downtown.
I love Comic-Con, but I'll take more big events. That's fine with me.
Marvel needs to remember where it started and who got it where it is today. Come back.
There's a part of me that agrees with that, as far as like I don't want Comic-Con to go away, and if they all start doing that, it will. Because
that's the point I was trying to make. Like, if
you guys understand, listen,
too far, this takes
Comic-Con.
away from what we have.
I hate that we're not able to go to Comic-Con this year, but it's gonna, like, these studios are all gonna start doing their own. Look at the success of D23. It's just a matter of time before Sony and Paramount and Universal and Warner Brothers all want to have their own
Nobody's
thing
going to
where
Sony
they can make the money. And they
the other thing we got to watch for too,
between Disney, who owns
has everything
in the world, to Sony. Like,
I mean, because
nobody's going to Sony.
If Disney stops going to Comic-Con, you lose Marvel, you lose anything that was Fox.
Come to our Ghost in the Shell pop-up restaurant.
All right, y'all.
But you also got to remember the other thing.
Haters, go ahead and doubt right now. I'll bet
I'm
you.
not doubting that
I'm with you. I'm talking about the ramifications of it. But
other studios are going to have their own events that people.
But I agree with Charlie.
They're going to for 1 year until they lose money and shut down because nobody wants Paramount.
The thing we are going to have now, if that happens, the thing we are going to get is a much bigger presence at international cons. We see what happened at CCXP in Brazil. We're going to see more of that. We're going to have one or two of those around the world that are huge events. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're going to see more of that in other places of the world. If we break them up here in the United States, they're going to now rely on these big markets, something in China that Vin Diesel leads every year or something.
A Comic-Con event ever.
So like putting a bow on just like how I feel about this. I don't agree that E3 always sucked. I loved watching. So I loved watching E3, and I remember that feeling of having it like looking at websites, my favorite sites for announcements, and like seeing all this stuff coming out of there.
Oh, sure, the news out of E3 was great.
My point is,
sucked.
But my point is that I remember when Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, and all the small publishers had a presence there, and over the years, Nintendo doing their own thing, Microsoft doing their own thing. Even though some of them are still at E3, they're still doing it on separate campuses, so they're not even in the main hall.
Nintendo Directs have changed a lot of.
It's not the same,
business.
And E3 now kind of sucks, and I don't want that to happen to Comic-Con.
And I did not have fun.
I'm saying, okay, well,
I had a cheeseburger one time, and it wasn't good.
But I will say,
cheeseburgers have been bad always.
I remember what that was
Unrelated.
like, and now seeing what it's become, I don't want that to happen to Comic-Con. And if this starts happening with these big players, it will.
These big players built Comic-Con. Comic-Con didn't start as a movie show.
I know. So why do I want them to leave and take all their stuff to a con just about them? No, I want, one of the appeals about going to a Comic-Con is getting a little bit of everything and seeing all these, and Marvel and Disney in general has a giant presence there. So why do I want them to
kill Comic-Con? I don't want Comic-Con to die. Trust me.
If they pull out completely,
don't pull out. Disney still Comic-Con.
Okay, but you're talking from a business perspective.
A PG-13 show.
You were talking from a business perspective, though. Like, your argument is, from a business sense, it makes total sense that they would want all these people to come to their own con so they can control everything.
Well, sure, but they will still
with that
have
business
a benefit.
mentality.
They'll still have a benefit of going to Comic-Con as well.
Okay, but not in the same number and not in the same financial.
They're going to have a pop-up stand with a plastic Captain America.
Marvel Studios,
they're going to roll up to LA to San Diego Comic-Con with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reunion shows.
It's not going to be the same.
What are you guys? Comic-Con was just the headline of the year this year was Marvel's Hall H panel. It was great. They had announcements.
And Marvel doesn't have their own Comic-Con.
And then they got on a bus from San Diego and they rode it up to Anaheim, and the same exact people did D23, and it was just as big. Like 3 weeks apart.
It was not just as big.
I remember the traffic. I remember the traffic. It wasn't that big.
It was not just as big. Yeah. They held
and D23 had a huge Star Wars announcement. The biggest thing out of D23 was Star Wars.
Comic-Con was just as big.
Sure, Jan. Like, sure.
I don't understand. Are you telling me that the headlines out of the Marvel Studios panel were not as big as they always were, despite
They were huge. The Marvel Studios panel at Comic-Con
yes
was enormous.
Yes.
That's what
that's
we're
my
saying.
point. And
We
they
were all
still had their
there
own thing
together.
that didn't hurt Comic-Con.
No, they did D23 where they didn't reveal as much. They added extra details from the Comic-Con stuff,
Well,
and D23.
You're literally
was a
fighting
thing.
my argument. You're
Okay,
arguing
no.
for me. My point is that Comic-Con did not
Look.
suffer at all because of Marvel
Look,
having.
we're not talking public relations. We were all just sitting watching a numbers chart. Like, I can tell you from numbers that the D23 reveals for Marvel were not as big as they were at Comic-Con.
Thank you very much for proving my argument once again. Candidate number 2. My point
point
is that
is-
San Diego Comic-Con was not hurt by D23.
Yes.
Right, because D23 is not a Marvel-only Comic-Con.
Yes,
if they have a
that's
Marvel-only
the
Comic-Con,
point.
they're not going to stop doing D23. If they have both those shows, the first thing that's going to go is San Diego Comic-Con. They're not going to go there anymore if they have their own shows to do.
Yeah.
There's only so much content to go around.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I get
I don't know. There's
90
like
million
74
movies.
episodes of Disney Plus and 3 movies.
Okay, really? As someone who doesn't even watch the service anymore, that's ironic coming from you.
I'm talking about
like,
the
there's only so many announcements to go around. So if you pull a show, D23 is not just about Marvel. It's about a lot of things, right? So if you, in 3 years, if Marvel's show turns out to be incredibly popular, which it probably would, and financially viable, it probably would, they'll make a killing. What then precludes them from pulling more and more of their effort and financial backing to Comic-Con towards their own? Business-wise, it makes perfect sense to do that. You want more in-house than out-of-house. So over time,
That's Disney's whole business model.
over
putting
time, they
everything
will
in-house.
slowly take back, just like what happened to E3, slowly peel back. And then all of a sudden, in a couple of years, you're going to look and go, Comic-Con is an afterthought for Marvel. And that's a bummer.
Right, and that's what we're
I
trying to argue.
understand what
And
you're
where your
saying.
point
Yes,
is
I
saying
agree.
that Comic-Con is huge.
That was
You're
my
right.
point. That's my
What you're
point.
saying is very possible. Right now, it's speculation. The fact is, they did
Well,
Comic-Con.
all of this is.
And D.
I mean, a Marvel convention is speculation. It does not exist.
They did. The only thing we have to go off of is what has literally existed and happened and can be statistically proven, and that's that they did Comic-Con and D23. Comic-Con was fine.
Yes, and if that continues to happen, that will like the same results will happen. If they launch a brand new convention only about Marvel, those things change.
Yeah.
Star Wars has gone to Comic-Con the same year as Star Wars.
You just said
Celebration as
Star
well.
Wars doesn't matter as much as Marvel does. You said that.
I understand. Oh my
You're
God.
ruining Comic-Con.
Yeah, I'm the villain.
That's
here.
my point. That was
I'm
my
the
point in the
villain.
beginning. Don't ruin Comic-Con. That was my
Oh,
point.
man.
All right. How about you guys? Let's throw it up to the audience. So you guys want to know and want to see a Marvel convention, hit us up at the hashtag Comic Book Nation, or hit BD up. You know where to find him, or hit Charlie up. I'm sure you know where to find him too. All right. We're going to move right along. So time is tight. So let's just jump to the WrestleMania thing. We got to shout out real quick before time is out. No, we'll do it at the end. We'll do quarantine watch parties at the end. So WrestleMania real quick. Should WrestleMania be a 2-night event? I think Connor Casey touched upon this. I think he was in favor of it, if I remember correctly.
I honestly can't remember. I thought he was against it, if I remember correctly. If he wasn't a big fan. For me, and this is, and you can check out Comicbook.com for essentially all this comes from Triple H's comments when he was asked about it. He's actually a fan of the 2-night thing. 2 nights
He's a
for
fan of
WrestleMania crushed
Money.
in the ratings. It crushed. It did amazingly well for WWE, even amidst all
But there was
the
nothing
crazy.
else on.
Yeah, it was the only live, remotely sport thing.
True, you are
on
absolutely
television.
correct. But it also had a benefit of being from someone who has watched a lot of WrestleManias and a lot of WWE pay-per-views. Having 6 hours of your night tied up in
For the
the
record,
wrestling show.
I'm making a joke. I'm with you. If you're saying
Yes.
that 2 nights is a good idea,
I would love it. I would love it because I will say I enjoyed this spread a heck of a lot more than I enjoyed just sitting there. It feels like for 14 hours on a Sunday night, just between kickoff shows and promos and separate things. You also got to remember, this is a week-long event. As Triple H mentions, like takeovers typically on Saturday nights anyway. That's another 4 or 5 hours. Raw and SmackDown lead into WrestleMania. Raw is the next night. Like the Hall of Fame is typically on Thursday. There's a lot of stuff that week. So if you can alleviate just one night of sitting around and watching that much content, that's a lot of wrestling for anyone, even the devouts. So I would say I liked this spread out a lot better. You put a couple marquee acts on both nights and then give the other superstars time to shine. I like it. You would have to figure out what to do with NXT takeovers because those are typically on the Saturday nights. But overall, for me, I'm in favor of it. So
2 3 to 4 hour nights is so much better than 1 6 or 7 hour night.
yes, it
So
makes a
much
huge
better.
difference.
Plus, with the theatrics of WWE that we saw on display this year, you could build up the drama. I mean, you need cliffhangers from night 1 into night 2. Like,
Yep.
you need all that stuff. You need storylines that build up and start in night 1 and then explode in night 2. You know, you gotta.
And it's great for us.
The one thing that I will kind of play devil's advocate for is the people that buy tickets to go. Do you sell separate night tickets? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You know, do you get disappointed if you buy a ticket and then all the stuff happens on the other night?
Not to take it back to Comic-Con, but you've seen Comic-Con and you know how that money works. Yeah, it's a good thing.
I understand it's a good thing. You're going to make money on tickets, but for the fan experience, what does that do? Because this was a special circumstance in where no one could attend. That will not be the case next year.
Yeah. Now, locally, for the local economy, which, by the way, wherever they're based gets a huge boost in local economy because they book out almost every night of that week with something. TakeOver typically sits in the same arena on Saturday nights. So, I mean, it's not like people wouldn't be used to going to a second show because they already are, and they have a fan expo event that's running the whole weekend long that people are getting autographs and meeting people. So it's like a mini Comic-Con that weekend. So I don't think as long as you advertise early which matches are on which night, which they did not do here because so many things were in flux. If you do that ahead of time where people know if I want to see The Fiend, I need to go on Sunday as opposed to Saturday, I think you get around that. I think people will adapt. People will be pissy at the beginning because they hate that. But ultimately, like, if you don't go 2 nights of WrestleMania, you use the other night to go do something else that WWE has going on. There's enough. Plus, local independent shows have their own giant year-long events on that weekend. So, yeah, you don't go see WWE, but maybe you go to another show. So, I mean, I think you can get around
it's like
it.
going to Comic-Con, kind of.
Yeah, it is. You could buy like a 2-day pass or a 1-day pass, essentially.
Yeah. You can structure around that.
The only issue is the seating because it's a whole thing. But
yeah, it is.
I understand.
Logistics would have to be worked out. There will also be people not happy about it. They'd have to figure out what to do with TakeOver. Like, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen for that. But I think it would be for the better. And I was surprised that Triple H was actually on board with that. That surprised me. I did not think he would be the one. But actually, that shouldn't surprise me because he's a little bit more progressive when it comes to WWE policies than Vince. So, yeah, he would be the one, I guess.
Was that it?
Yeah, that's
all you
WrestleMania.
got?
That's all I got for WrestleMania, man.
All right. I mean, yeah, might as well make it a weekend. Let Tampa just soak up all of that. Ugh.
Gronk's already there.
Yeah, just make it a whole weekend. Let the inspection
Gronk. Don't get me started on Gronk.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, do you want me to launch into the quarantine thing real quick?
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll. How about we'll do a 2-parter? We'll let BDs promote tonight's, and it'll be over by the time they hear it. But you can promote it and just say future ones, BD. You know, you can flex on this.
Yeah. So by the time you're hearing this, we had the most amazing night ever at Quarantine Watch Party. James Gunn joined on Thursday night for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm sure if you go to comicbook.com/Marvel right now, you'll see a lot of the highlights. Hopefully some Guardians 3 teases. He offered up a good bit about Volume 3 during our first Guardians Watch Party. And he also already said something very interesting on Twitter. Somebody asked him in regards to the Watch Party, they asked, can Mantis, who debuts in Guardians 2, put the emotions and memories of what Gamora thought of the Guardians before she died into 2014 Gamora, who ran off in Endgame? And he said Mantis can give Gamora those feelings so she knows what to feel about the Guardians, but you can't give her the memories. So that's a fun fact. And on Sunday night, we have the writers of Avengers Infinity War joining us for Avengers Infinity War. And I can't say anything else about the rest of that event. All you should know is that Infinity War has a sequel, and every Marvel fan knows to stay through the credits. So there's some big surprises that you don't want to miss. And also, Matt Aguilar here has lined up a really cool event for another show that's really good. So I'm going to let him explain that one to you.
By the way, can I just commend Brandon's tease? That was a very good tease. That was a quality tease right there. Yeah. So we are actually going to be doing a quarantine watch party for The Witcher. The Witcher. As you
also
pronounce.
Toy into your Witcher.
Yeah, that's right. What?
I was gonna grab. I don't have any nearby.
Toss some quarantine to your Witcher.
It is an effort to get Kofi to sing more on the show. So I am so happy about this. Yeah, we're going to actually be teaming up with a couple people. We'll have the full list and details and everything by the time you hear this. But Lauren S. Hicksrick is going to be joining us, the showrunner from the show. We also have the director of the episode we are watching, which is episode 6, Rare Species. Wanted to do something other than the pilot because Rare Species is one of the coolest episodes in the season. Hint, hint, there are dragons. And it's awesome. So we're going to finally get her to break down all that. We also got the episode director. We have series writers, and we're hoping to get some of the cast and even more from the crew. So make sure to check out Comicbook.com. This is all taking place on Friday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Which, like this Friday?
This Friday.
Why have you never told me there are dragons on this show?
Because
you didn't watch The Witcher?
I've watched 2 episodes. 1.5.
Charlie wasn't a giant fan.
And you dope. By the time they hear this, it's tonight. Right now. Go to see The Witcher.
I would have watched quicker and more if I knew there were dragons.
Wait, so this starts at 8 p.m. Eastern, Matt?
7 p.m. Central Time. Yes, 6 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, sweet.
My bad.
6 p.m. Mountain Time.
My time zones are all off. So yeah, 7 p.m. Central.
5 p.m. Pacific.
So props for you for knowing when this is happening.
Yeah, I got it wrong when I keep getting.
What is that in London? Midnight?
5
don't ask me.
5 hours ahead.
Don't ask me that.
All right. Well, that's it. Quarantine watch party. It's been going down. If you guys haven't, we told you over and over again, if you guys aren't getting in on that, it's some of the most fun you can have in quarantine. It's free. It's mostly free. It's easy. And it's a surprisingly fun experience to actually get your Mystery Science Theater on with a bunch of other people while you're watching some of your favorite film. So be sure to get up on that. Now, if you're doing that side of Comic Book, make sure you also want to get into Comic Book Nation. We put up new episodes every Wednesday and Friday on Comicbook.com, where you can subscribe to our RSS feed and get regular updates about the show, or you can subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platforms. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Google Playlists. You can find video of the show on our Comicbook.com YouTube page. And if you want to get with us, iHeartRadio, don't forget them. And if you want to ever talk to us about anything, pitch us topics, things to argue about, things you think we should know about, always hit us up at the hashtag Comic Book Nation, or you can reach me at Kofi Outlaw.
You can reach me at Matt Aguilar CB.
Go ahead, BD.
You can reach me at Brandon Davis BD.
And I'm at Charlie Ridgely.
That'll do it for this show. If you guys are just now getting into us during the quarantine period arc of our show, make sure you go on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review, because when we get back to the studio eventually, we do read 5-star reviews from iTunes on the show periodically. And if we read your review, you get to send us a little heads up, and we will send you a free Comic Book Nation t-shirt. So be sure to go on iTunes. Drop those 5-star reviews. I've been watching since March into April, and a lot of you have been helping us out there. So thank you for that, and continue to do it. That'll do it for this episode of Comic Book Nation. Again, thank you, everybody, for listening in, and we will hope to see you out there on the quarantine watch party hashtag so we can chop it up as we watch some good films. So talk to you guys later. See you next episode. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.
Deuces.